welcome to Horrify.world's Madness Marathon. To celebrate Halloween, the Horrify.world crew has made the Madness Marathon Halloween calendar. Every day we open a door, and behind every door is a recommendation for a free horror game that you should play. 31 days, 31 recommendations, hours of fun. And on the 31st, we have a special surprise for you. But enough talking, let's see what hides behind today's door. When I'm out surfing, I have to keep an internal countdown. If the water is below sub-zero, I have from the second I plummet into it about 10 minutes before the first symptoms of hypothermia begin to set in. The cold is not a fear that most of us have. It's not something we need to be aware of. It's not something that's relevant to us, anymore as human beings. Of course, unless you're like me and you surf or you work in a similar setting or live in a very remote part of the Arctic. But for some reason, us, the nerds, the gamers, the geeks, the people that spend the absolute least amount of time outside, we are obsessed with the fear of the cold. And since John Carpenter directed The Thing in 1982, we've told countless of stories in similar settings with similar themes. One location that is in particular popular in this subgenre of horror, a subgenre that I like to call sub-zero horror, is Greenland. And that's where Black Snow is set. It's a game that starts out like many others of its ilk. You're a part of a team that's been called in to investigate why a research base isn't responding to communications, and just as you arrive, you are knocked out, and then some time passes, and as you come to, you realize that you are all alone. If you think this looks like a Half-Life game, then you're not wrong. It was originally a mod for Half-Life 2's Episode 2, but due to a Steam update, it's since been ported to the free source 2013 SDK, which is why I'm recommending it to you now, because the 2013 SDK is free to use. But aside from that recognizable source aesthetic, it really doesn't have a ton in common with Half-Life 2. It has a lot more in common with a game like Amnesia: The Dark Descent, which is a little funny because Frictional Games, the developer of that game, got their first break with their Penumbra trilogy, a series of games also set at an abandoned research base in Greenland. I even think that there are some other similarities, but I'll let you figure those out on your own. But unlike Penumbra and just like Amnesia, it's a moody horror adventure game where you creep through the halls of an abandoned structure and look for clues as to what happened, and you use your puzzling skills to gain access to other parts of the structure so you can find more clues as to what happened. I initially thought that it was just gonna be a walking simulator and that the horror would come from reading the notes and realizing what had happened, and not from encounters with the enemies. But boy, was I wrong. As I was creeping through some hallways, I noticed this smoke thing. I really didn't think much of it, even though I had read about it in the notes that I had found around, and that the researchers thought that it was somehow to blame for the staff around the facility randomly dying. But despite reading this, I didn't investigate and just continued on. But then a little bit later on, I got hit with something, and it took a massive chunk of my HP off, and when I turned around, it was the cloud, and then it murdered me. It turns out that the titular Black Snow is this cloud and other clouds like it, and that the facility came under attack by them. They slowly drain and destroy electrical installations and make the facility colder and darker, and they move better through the cold and the dark, and if an area is lit well enough and warm enough, they basically die like a vampire would in sunlight. This ups the stake, and it elevates the game quite a bit. Not only do you have to figure out some very involved puzzles that require you to read excerpts from actual science textbooks, you somehow also have to avoid the smoke monsters, stay warm, and even trap and kill some of the monsters when they are in the way or just won't leave you alone. And it's at this point that the game really gripped, and it gripped hard. And as a final note, this game's location is super well crafted. In case you didn't know, Greenland is a sovereign nation, but it's also a part of the Kingdom of Denmark. And Danish is one of the three main languages spoken in Greenland, with the other being English and Greenlandic, of course. Usually, when games are set in this location, all the text around the bases will be in English or even Norwegian sometimes, which doesn't make sense. But in Black Snow, there is a blend of both English and Danish, like there would be in real life. because the people working here would be communicating in English using Danish language computers and reading Danish magazines, and that's what they do. All the computers' menus are in Danish, and I even found a issue of costume a fashion magazine from Denmark. And I know I'm probably the only person that will appreciate this, because the mod is dead and it has been for an age, but it's so cool and the game is cool, and I've uploaded a fixed drag and drop version of the game on the website, and I'll give it a 12 out of 13.
Minor lacerations detected.
I hope you've enjoyed this video, and I hope you've enjoyed the game in the video. Remember to go visit Horrify.world tomorrow and every day after for the remainder of October. You know, to see what other great free games are out there. From all of us here at Horrify.world, stay extra spooky during this month, and take care.